Hello, I'm the Irresolute Cartographer, and this is a review of Episode 1 of the Fallout TV show. For a little bit of context, I watched all 8 episodes. For the purposes of this review, I have rewatched this episode about 4 times, including a viewing with my wife, who is uninitiated in the Fallout universe. I intend to cover each of the 6 sections of this episode in turn, giving a broad strokes plot summary, a listing of the good, the confusing, and the bad aspects of each section. I'll also detail anything that is lore-breaking and anything that has been added to the lore of the universe. Lastly, I'll list the character details given in each section for each character. That being said, let's get started. On Saturday, October 23rd, 2077, Cooper Howard, a former Western movie star, performs at a children's birthday party in Los Angeles, California, with his daughter Janie. While there, the Great War begins as nuclear bombs fall. On to the good aspects. First, this scene makes excellent use of Nat King Cole's Orange Colored Sky, a song that was part of the Fallout 4 licensed music. Second, the costume design is great. Both Cooper and Janie's 1950s movie cowboy attire and the suburban upper-middle-class clothing of the parents of the party. Third, set design, including the proper appearance of appliances and the home's modern architecture. Fourth, the radio reflects pre-existing lore about the president vanishing from the White House. Fifth, there's Mr. Handy in the house, which is always fun to see. Sixth, the scene includes general animosity towards communism and suspected communists. Lastly, there are amazing shots after the bomb, with the parents fighting and running with a mushroom cloud backdrop. On to the confusing aspects. These are aspects about which I'd like to see more clarification in future seasons. First, while nuclear war being just around the corner seems to have been an omnipresent feeling in the pre-war of the Fallout universe, people in this scene seem to have been more on edge than ever seen before. Specifically, the weatherman not wanting to report on next week's weather if he doesn't know if there's going to be a next week. I'm hoping Season 2 will explain why the fear is more acute than has been seen before. Second, China, the enemy the United States was currently fighting a hot war with, was not mentioned. The news broadcast refers to America's adversaries. There is an animosity towards communism, but I don't think that the enemy is actually ever mentioned. I don't know why this is, but I must assume that there are commercial interests that kept China from being mentioned in a negative light. On to the bad aspects. Just one here, the way that the first detonation acts is for dramatic effect. The initial flash should have blinded Janie, but did not. It should have drawn the attention of the parents, or at least Cooper, but did not. I think that they'd used the excuse of Mr. Spencer's camera flashes, desensitizing the attendees to bright flashes, but nukes are significantly brighter. The initial wave of radiation should have affected the electronics in the house before the shockwave got there, but did not. The shockwave itself took longer than it should have to get there. This was all done to make the scene what it was. I accept it for what it was, but I'm sure that there are those who don't. On to lore-breaking aspects. Just as before, we only have one. This scene takes place at the wrong time of day. The bombs hit the East Coast at 9:42 a.m. At the same time on the West Coast, it was 5:42 a.m. The bombs on the West Coast hit even earlier than the bombs on the East Coast. The time of the strike appears to have been changed to fit the scene. On to new lore established by this section. This scene gives the first indication I've seen in the Fallout universe that peace negotiations were taking place. It seems that these negotiations were taking place in Anchorage, a recent war zone the United States had retaken from the Chinese. These negotiations also appear to have been stymied by the president's absence. We know from the games that the president was on the Poseidon Energy oil rig at this time. On to the character aspects laid out by this section. The only character that really gets any development here is Cooper Howard. From these events, we know that he is formerly successful, having recently fallen on hard times, is a suspected communist, is divorced from his wife, and is a Marine veteran. On to Section 2. Lucy McLean appears before a Vault Council to apply for marriage with a candidate from a neighboring vault. She is then wed to a resident of Vault 32. After the wedding, Lucy discovers that her husband is a raider and the vault is under attack. Her father, Overseer Henry McLean, is kidnapped by the fake overseer of Vault 32, Lee Moldaver. On to the good. First, this scene serves as an accurate representation of ideal Vault Dweller culture: honest, hardworking, self-improving, family-focused, and pro-American. Along with this, the Vault suits and Vault set look amazing. Second, the violence is incredibly gory and in keeping with the Fallout universe. On to the confusing. First, when Lee Moldaver introduces herself as Vault Overseer of 32, and Hank shares his condolences on the loss of her predecessor, she says that many people died due to a wheat blight. This is considered an acceptable excuse. Would these vaults not have shared food to prevent starvation? This is odd. Second, and this one is from my wife, who is completely uninitiated in the Fallout universe, why didn't they use a Geiger counter on the dwellers of 32 when they met? If radiation is such a potent clue as to whether you're dealing with a real or fake vault dweller and it's so easy to check, why didn't anyone bother? I think this can be excused by the naivety of dwellers and their intention not to seem distrustful of their neighbors, but I think she has a point. There are a few more points connected to this stuff that deals with information learned in later episodes, but that'll have to wait for the concluding video of this series. For now, let's move on to the bad. The biggest issue I have with this section comes from the alert that calls Hank and Lucy McClane to the door between 32 and 33. The alert indicates a breach, but that door was already open. This passage is how the 32s got in and how Norm got into 32 to do his scouting. There was no reason for the alert. You could point out that the door from the agricultural sector to the hallway to Vault 32 was sealed accidentally by Chet when his key was disconnected from the door, but that door is in sight of the spot where Hank got the alert. It seems like the show needed something to call Hank to the spot and used an unnecessary alarm to do it. I didn't see anything explicitly lore-breaking in this section, but there are a couple pieces of new lore. First, we have our first information on Vaults 31, 32, and 33, and we know that they're linked and participate in trade every 3 years. Second, we now know that non-reproductive, semi-sexual relationships between cousins appears to be acceptable in long-operating vaults where almost everyone is a fairly close relation. This is the cousin stuff referred to by Lucy. Lastly, though connected, Vaults 32 and 33 would not share supplies even if starvation were possible. We learn a lot about the characters here. First, Lucy McClane works on vault repairs, works with her father in the vault lab, and teaches American history with a focus on ethics. She practices gymnastics, fencing, wrestling, and riflery. Though she's a highly accurate shot, she pretends not to be. She enjoys taking walks, watching movies, gardening, and reading with her father. She is healthy and single. She has participated in 10 years of cousin stuff. Her mother is gone. She is a very matter-of-fact and awkward person. She's driven to perpetuate America and is not squeamish. Next, Hank McClane is the overseer of Vault 33. He has a scientific mind and works in the vault lab. He enjoys taking walks, watching movies, gardening, and reading with his daughter. His wife is gone. He is originally from Vault 31. He has something of an awareness of the outside world, having some knowledge of Lee Moldaver. Norm McClane, Lucy's brother and Hank's son, plays Atomic Command. He is not interested in his family's book club. He is frightened of the unknown, likes to mess with his sister, and is one of the more intelligent and perceptive residents of the vault. Stephanie Harper, Lucy's friend who prepared her for her wedding, is pregnant with her husband Bert, whom she married March 17, 2294. She shows some serious endurance by fighting like crazy even after losing an eye in battle. Chet, Lucy's cousin, is in love with her but is too closely related. Along with this, he is the vault's gatekeeper. Lee Moldaver, the false overseer of Vault 32, appears to be someone of prominence in the Wasteland, although we learn little of her aside from this. On to Section 3. A day in the life of Maximus, a Brotherhood of Steel aspirant. Maximus deals with hazing, abusive trainers, latrine duty, and watches his fellows rise above him. A Brotherhood force arrives by air, leading to the promotion of several new squires, including his friend Dane. Dane has their ankle sliced open in an act of sabotage by an unknown actor, but Maximus is blamed. On to the good. First, we see an excellent representation of the drudgery of the life of low-ranking members of the Brotherhood. Second, the technology in this scene looks good, from the power armor to the vertibirds to the airship. Third, the setting looks perfect, likely because they filmed in a real-world former Air Force base that closed in 1969. Wendover Airport in Wendover, Utah, near the Nevada border if you're interested. On to the confusing. First, the fact that there's a character with the rank of Cleric. Cleric is not a rank that we've seen before in the Brotherhood. Typically, Cleric Felix would be referred to as Scribe Felix. I must assume that there's been some evolution in the Brotherhood between Fallout 4 and now. There will be more on this topic when we cover Section 5 of this episode. Second, I want to know where this Brotherhood force came from. At the time of Fallout New Vegas 15 years prior, the Western Brotherhood was in terrible shape. It's entirely possible that they've rebuilt, but I'd like to know more about that process. Third, there was a pre-release article in Vanity Fair that called the airship that arrives at the base Caswinen. This is incorrect. If you pause the show at the right moment, you can read Pridwin on the side in faint lettering. This means that the airship from Fallout 4 has crossed the continent. This means that we also have something of an answer to the canonical end of Fallout 4, in that the Pridwin was not destroyed. Onto the lore aspects, both breaking and new. This is a tricky section because it's hard to know if what we're seeing is lore breaking or an evolution of the Brotherhood. Some of what I've listed in the confusing section could fit in here too. Is the role of Cleric a break with the lore, or has the rank been created since 2287? In terms of new lore, we have some insight into the canonical ending of Fallout 4. The Pridwin is destroyed in all endings but the Brotherhood ending, so it would seem that their version of things is canonical. Along with this, we see that the Brotherhood transmits images via radio by providing graph coordinates to be filled in, creating low-resolution images. As a side note in this section, I believe that we can call this area the Flatlands based on the Flatlands shelter that has just been added to the Fallout 76 Atomic Shop. On to new character aspects. First, we learn that Maximus is frequently hazed, has trouble with his studies, works latrine duty, and is friends with Dane. Despite the hazing, he appears to idolize the Brotherhood and loves the power armor worn by the Knights. Second, we learn that Dane is kind, is considered worthy of promotion by Brotherhood higher-ups, but ends up sabotaged before taking that new role. Lastly, we learn that Thaddeus is a ringleader in the hazing of Maximus. On to Section 4. Lucy McLean, driven to return her father home safely, leaves the vault against the wishes of the Council and begins to search for him. On to the good. First, the time of day flipboards turning around hiding bloodstains is a great shot. Second, the Vault Dwellers are highly fearful of the outside world, and it matches the lore very well. While some of this is of course due to the recent attack, there's also a fear instilled by years of propaganda. Lastly, the soaring music and blinding light when the vault door opens are an excellent representation of the experience of the lone wanderer leaving Vault 101 and the sole survivor leaving Vault 111. There's nothing inherently confusing here, so let's move on to the bad. Only one thing here really pops out for me, and it's the Pompeii bodies outside Vault 33. In 79 AD, the town of Pompeii was buried in volcanic ash by Mount Vesuvius. So rapid was the eruption that many of the people of Pompeii were unable to escape and were buried in their houses and the streets of the city. This ash then solidified. When archaeologists began to explore the site in the mid-18th century, digging through the solidified ash, they came across voids in the material with bones inside. When they poured plaster into these voids, they produced castings in the shape of human bodies. This is not what happened outside Vault 33. It's very eerie looking, but they should have stuck with piles of bones. I didn't see anything lore breaking here, so let's move on to new lore. Two things. First, we get to see more of the structure of Vault 33 here in terms of how deep most of it is and how they access the surface. Along with this, we now know that Vaults 31, 32, and 33 are near Santa Monica. Second, we know from this section that residents of Vault 33 believe that the outer door has never been opened before. On to the new character aspects. In this section, we learn that Lucy has some medical skills as she staples her own knife wound shut, and that she's very driven and protective of the people she loves. On to Section 5. Maximus endures an interrogation related to Dane's injury and is cleared and promoted to Squire in their place. He then starts his first mission with Knight Titus, going after a defector from the Enclave. On to the good. I appreciate the visuals of Elder Cleric Quintus sending the teams on their mission. On to confusing things and lore issues. First, I don't understand exactly how the information of this mission got to the Brotherhood. A man escaped from the Enclave. Did the image of the man start with the Enclave searching for him? Quintus says that the mission comes from the highest clerics in the Commonwealth. Does this mean that someone in California sent this information to the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth Brotherhood then transmitted it to the Flatlands Brotherhood? Also, why bother transmitting an image of the dog, given how long it takes to transmit images? Second, as before, the clerics. In past iterations of the Brotherhood, Quintus would be an elder or a paladin. What is this new elder cleric rank? The cleric rank has spread through the Brotherhood, as referenced in the "Our mission comes from the highest clerics in the Commonwealth" line. Third, this section is the first to include power armor with voice modulators. This is a completely new thing in Fallout, and I'm not terribly pleased with it. As with the other things, I'll accept it if we get some word that the Brotherhood has started doing this with all their armor, but in the past, voices coming out of the suits simply sounded like they were coming over a speaker system. Fourth, this is the first area where we hear knights referred to as Lord by their squires. I don't like this as it feels out of step with what we've previously seen in the Brotherhood. It feels like they're imitating the chivalric knights of the Middle Ages that were typically nobility. Previously, the Brotherhood imitated religious military orders such as the Knights Templar and Knights Hospitaller. Again, if this is an actual evolution of the Brotherhood instituted within the past 9 years, I'll accept it, but it feels wrong. Fifth, branding squires. Another brand new thing that feels completely out of step with the Brotherhood. Combine this with the incense swinging clerics and it feels like the Brotherhood is going in a weird direction. Sixth, Elder Cleric Quintus appears to approve of the philosophy that might makes right, promoting Maximus because he thinks he's responsible for Dane's injury, an attack against a fellow brother that Maximus would have committed to improve his own lot. This is not a commentary on the Brotherhood as a whole, I'm simply saying that I think this is Quintus's mindset. Seventh, the Brotherhood is recruiting again. Throughout its history, the Brotherhood has gone through periods of isolation in which growth comes from reproduction, while in other times they have recruited outsiders. From a flashback of Maximus's past, we know that he was not in the Brotherhood as a child. Lastly, when Maximus is effectively pleading for his life, he talks about helping the Brotherhood to reach its goals, saying, "So, if I can help the Brotherhood make it better, Eden or whatever, even if it means giving my own life, I'll do it." He could be speaking metaphorically when he says Eden, but I've considered as well that this could be a new Brotherhood ideal, a utopian vision of the future they call Eden. On to new character aspects. We learn that Maximus can think under pressure, and that Elder Cleric Quintus might approve of ambition to the point of harming brothers. On to Section 6, the last section. The ghoul is raised by bounty hunters going after the Enclave defector. While they hoped to gain his aid, he kills them and takes on the mission himself. On to the good. This was my favorite of the post-war sections because of the setting, the attire, the dialogue, the music, and the use of the junk jet weapon from Fallout 3. On to the confusing parts. It's mentioned that a man named Dom Pedro digs the ghoul up once a year to cut pieces off, but he appears to be intact, other than the typical parts that fall off in becoming a ghoul. There wasn't any part of this that I didn't like, so let's move on to the lore. First, this seems to confirm the idea that ghouls can survive without sustenance for a long time if he can be buried for a year without starving to death. Second, I believe that this scene happens in Baja for a few reasons. The mariachi music, the slain sentry's attire, the man who has buried the ghoul here is named Dom Pedro, and most importantly, the boss tells the ghoul that the man they're hunting is running to California, and says that that's where the ghoul's from originally, seemingly indicating that they're not there. It would seem to me that he would say he's running here to California if they were in California. On to new character aspects. We learn that the ghoul is an extremely skilled fighter that loves bounty hunting. Along with this, we learn that Moldaver, the fake overseer in Vault 32, is indeed well known, and is called That Witch by the boss. Alright, that should do it for episode 1. I'll be back with a video on episode 2 in a few days. Follow me on X for lore video announcements at Gaming with Maps. My Discord is open to the public, there's a link in the channel's banner. I stream every Friday evening on YouTube, come check it out if you're interested. If you appreciate what I do here and you want to support the channel financially, you can become a member on YouTube or a patron with Patreon. I want to thank my channel members and patrons, Mesothelioma, 76 of Texas, Dark Malcontent, Real76, Dr. Orion, Samsung Smart Fridge, Night Spearhead, Ahotep, Despy, Chris G059, Electric Head, and Hero Cunning for their support. I also want to thank my wife for helping with this video's script. This has been the Irresolute Cartographer. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.